Hello, and welcome to Handled-ish Productivity for the Imperfect, a weekly podcast for those who want to elevate their productivity but are not looking for perfection. I'm your host, Betsy Hayes, and I'm really happy you're here with me in podcast land or on YouTube. This is episode 73, and today we are talking about wrapping your arms around it. And I'm not talking about people, although hugs are amazing. So, feel free to keep continuing that. But I'm talking about wrapping your arms around a particular project or set of projects. So, this is a phrase that one of my favorite bosses, Robert Dean, one of my first bosses, used to talk about this whole idea of, hey, we really should really have to wrap our arms around the project. And the whole idea was we really just need to have a big, very comprehensive view of what we need to accomplish, when we need to accomplish it, and who is going to, do what, right? So essentially, wrapping your arms around something is just really good project management. However, one of the things that I have noticed, and I'm sure it's not, just something that I do on occasion, I've had people share this with me as well, is sometimes we just, are either thrown into a project and, we're just, frantically trying to get stuff done. I like to use the phrase whack-a-mole, right? That game where you're whacking, the moles and so sometimes that's the way we feel, right? It's like, okay, this urgent thing, we're going to whack that mole, and then this urgent thing, and then this urgent thing. And sometimes, even when we start a project like that, even when things slow down a little bit, we are still sort of in I'm just kind of going as I'm going sort of thing without a whole lot of strategy as far as what's happening. And yes, you're accomplishing things, you're getting stuff done, but there's this sort of nagging feeling in the back of your head that you don't really have your arms around this, right? That you're not really in control of the project, and perhaps it is controlling you. And so one of the things that I really like to do when this happens, and actually I just did this very recently, a few weeks ago, there was this I'm working with the career center at Fresno State to do a bunch of really cool things in the area of career readiness and career awareness for our students, sort of university wide, and working on a lot of really, really, really great projects with my colleague Mary, and a lot of cool stuff. And we're making a lot of headway on things, and there's just a lot of irons in the fire though. And I found that throughout the semester, we were doing what needs to be done. And I kept putting notes and thoughts about pieces of the project and upcoming pieces of the project and things we were going to do on this document. And this document was sort of this big, I'm just going to call it a hot mess. And I was really feeling a little bit of anxiety about it because I thought, you know what, I really don't feel like I have my arms around this project at this particular moment. And I know that there's probably things that are, need a little bit more attention on this document. I even had a few notes on my phone about the project, a couple of emails, right? So notes were in several different places, which is never good. And again, a lot of times, we're doing the thing when this happens, but we just have this, wow, I really want to have everything sort of organized in a really significant way. So I took literally a half day a couple of weeks ago, and I went through that document and I added the notes from my phone and the notes from those few emails. And I, came up with, okay, these are the priorities that we want to get accomplished this summer. And these are the things that we're going to work on in the fall. And there's even, these are some of the things that we're going to do for spring. And took all of these notes and put them in a way that they're a little bit more actionable. They're not just random thoughts. I have no problem with anyone writing down random thoughts. I think they can be extremely helpful. But what I needed for this project was to know exactly what I needed to do, particularly this summer, because that's where we're at. And, what our plan is for fall, so we can kind of think ahead about it. And let me take a step back. So one of the reasons that things get to this point is that you're sort of building the plane as you're flying it. And again, not best practices as far as project management is concerned, but there are certain things that are relatively new or maybe relatively innovative, or you're using just different ways of doing things that things just sort of evolve in the moment, which is why I really do like the phrase building the plane as we're flying it. Please don't ever do that literally, obviously. But sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? And we don't exactly know what directions are going to be the best. The best things to do first, and sort of what is the timeline, all that stuff. So there comes a point though that you do have enough information that you need to do this getting your arms around it thing. And so, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I spent a half day. I, organized everything by project, by action item, by, resources that need to be acquired, meetings that need to be held, those sorts of things. And especially for this summer, it really became more of an action plan slash checklist to-do list. And it made me feel so happy because it really made me feel in control of my parts of the project. And it really helped me feel like, okay, this is the finite list for this summer. And then, there's, with something really huge, sometimes the list sort of is always infinite, but at least there was a little bit of tangibleness to what was happening right now. I also feel really great about the big priorities for next year, and how we're going to go ahead and implement that and make that happen. And all of that really couldn't have been possible from the beginning because we didn't know, who were going to be the champions. There was a big leadership change in the middle, have to figure out what the new leadership is looking for, all kinds of things that sort of went in the way of providing a little bit of chaos. But once things settle down, it is such a good idea to just really just put everything in your brain and all your notes and get your arms around it and give yourself a real serious blueprint. I know that some of you don't have things like this in your life, and that is awesome. I'm pretty sure a lot of you do, right? There are things that are just going along, and there isn't just a master plan. And I encourage you to, take some time, and, it takes a lot of brain power. I personally use a lot of caffeine. Sometimes it can't be done in one day. Sometimes you have to, take a look at it over a couple different days. Sometimes you have to, share this particular draft with colleagues or partners on the project. I mentioned my colleague Mary. We went, over everything that I had put together, and she added obviously some additional thoughts and priorities that were on her massive list of notes. And then we can kind of move forward from here. The other thing this does is, if something is going to be an ongoing project, right, and eventually it's not going to be your responsibility, having these blueprints sort of is a really nice transition document for someone else who could potentially be taking over the project if it is, a rinse and repeat type of thing. And even if it's not a rinse and repeat type of thing, sometimes it's really good to have the background on how we arrived at what we're doing today. So that is what I wanted to talk about. So if you have something that is going, either really well or really not well, and you're, sort of, what are we doing next? What are our priorities? What are our key, strategic initiatives that we're going to be working on at these different time increments, is a little bit fuzzy, then I highly encourage you to do this. Wrap your arms around it. Get everything down in one particular document and figure out, maybe you're being a little bit unrealistic about what you can accomplish in a certain period of time. And so this is a really good opportunity to prioritize and maybe put something in a different time component or a different season, or maybe it doesn't get done, right? Maybe it turns out that this is not something that's going to be worth the effort. And that happens too, right? Particularly if you're looking at a new initiative and there's all these great ideas coming from all these different people. And so, you write them all down, but then, upon reflection, this is something that probably isn't going to have a big ROI, right? Not a big return on investment, not as high of a value for the time it's going to take. So you're not going to know that unless you really, do this, get your arms around it thing. So I wish you luck. And I wish you well getting your arms around something this week. And I hope it goes well. Would love to hear about it, of course. At Betsy Hayes, BetsyHays on social. BetsyAHays.com is my website. And until next week, have the most wonderful week. Be kind to yourself because I know, and so do you, I hope by now, that you are doing way better than you think you are. Trust me and take care.